Hello, everyone, and thank you, Adam. I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you some of these free or low-cost resources that you'll be able to use yourself and to help keep your organization secure. Now, the way that I'm going to present this information, it's going to seem like it's a lot, but don't worry. I'm going to make sure that you have all of the links at the end of the presentation. I like to start with the most important slide first, which is the Telework best practices. That's something that's put together by the Department of Homeland Security, National Security Agency, and CISA. Now, what I like best about this particular toolkit is that it offers specific advice and resources for different parts of an organization, whether you're an executive decision maker, an IT professional who's in charge of keeping the infrastructure operational, or you're a teleworker whose job is not at all security related, but you do play a part in making sure that you are as secure as possible when you're working outside of the office. Now, that's something that almost all of us have had experience with over the past couple of years, and it doesn't look like we're going to be going back into the office 100% anytime soon. So we need to make sure that as we are working remotely, we are being as safe and secure as possible. And this information from the US federal government will certainly help with that. Now, for campaigns in particular, I like to call out this expert roundtable report that was hosted and put together by Google. It's a frank discussion between digital security experts and US political campaign workers to really get at the heart of what does it mean to help make campaigns more secure. Now, we're going to hear a lot about resources, trainings, and products and services, but at the end of the day, they're really no good unless the people who use them every day take the problem seriously enough to make sure that they're implemented. And that's where this roundtable discussion, for me, makes it worth reading, because it's that frank discussion about the pros and the cons of each of these techniques and strategies, products and services, and how you can help identify the right mix of those for your particular campaign. CISA has broken down some of these high-level resources into a checklist. The best part about this, it's a one sheet. It's something for campaigns of any size, whether it's going to be a small campaign for local city council or a large statewide campaign or even a national campaign. This is to make sure that all of the basics are covered. Things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords. Now, it might seem redundant, something you've heard before, whether it's in this presentation or in other trainings you've had, but you have to remember, not everyone has heard of all of these things. And the goal here is to make sure that everyone who is involved in the process of your campaign knows just how important cybersecurity is and if they play a role in the process. The US Election Assistance Commission has specific security preparedness resources for election officials. This gets down to the operational level, things like performing self-assessments or evaluating whether or not remote voting solutions are right for that jurisdiction. Now, even though it says that it's specifically for election officials, I encourage folks like journalists or even just members of the community who are interested in the nuts and bolts of how elections are run to take a look at it. Not only does it provide some insight into the operational side of elections, it can help build confidence and push back against some of that misinformation that folks might hear when it comes to claims that somehow our election infrastructure is compromised. The National Association of Secretaries of State have a fantastic campaign. It's called Trusted Info 2022. What I really appreciate about this is that it identifies trusted sources of information when it comes to elections. That's typically going to be your state level election official. Those are the folks that you should go to if you ever have any questions about whether or not a piece of information you hear is true or false, or you just don't really understand quite how part of an election works. Now, the goal is ultimately to make sure that regardless of who you are, that you actually believe the trusted source of information over the non-trusted sources of information. And I think that's where NAS has gotten out in front of this to make sure that people in the communities all across the country know that they can look to their local election official and their state election official as the trusted sources of information when it comes to elections. We've heard a little bit about some of these products or services that individuals or even campaigns might want to take a look at when it comes to securing their infrastructure. Now, there's often a cost to these very, well, expensive and applicable products and services. This is where the Defending Digital Campaigns organization comes in. For House and Senate campaigns, they offer free cybersecurity assistance. What makes this great is that it's nonpartisan and independent, and it's not even treated as in-kind donations. So there really are very few reasons not to at least investigate whether or not these kinds of products and services are right for your campaign at the House or Senate level. Similarly, the Global Cyber Alliance offers vendor-agnostic, standards-based toolkits and resources. Now, these are applicable for elections or for journalists. I certainly recommend this toolkit for journalists. It's a step-by-step website that walks you through what does it take to become more secure and to make sure that you're taking cybersecurity seriously and that you are using the products and services that are available to you. The Cyber Readiness Institute has a similar program. They are a multi-sector global partnership that provides free starter kits to small and medium-sized businesses. Now you might be asking yourself, why are you talking about small and medium-sized businesses in election security? Well, if you think about it, campaigns are basically small and medium-sized businesses. And most importantly, they are created and also disassembled pretty quickly. So sometimes it can be difficult to get the infrastructure in place to make sure that they are as secure as they need to be. What I appreciate about the Cyber Readiness Institute is that they actually offer conversation guides. And these are ways to help those campaign staff and volunteers understand that they play a role in making sure that the campaign infrastructure is secure and that there are things that they can do to learn and implement cybersecurity in a way that makes sure that that is operationalized from day one. Now, almost every campaign is going to be on some social media platform, and that includes Facebook. Same can be said for election officials and also members of the public, because that's where a lot of conversation is happening. So I urge anyone who's in a position, whether they're a journalist or an election official or an interested party who qualifies, to enroll in Facebook Protect. This offers a higher level of protection against account compromise. This is especially important for those election officials who are on platform. Now, the last thing you'd want is for someone to go looking for an election official and find either a compromise or a fake Facebook account when that could have been prevented using Facebook Protect. It helps to ensure that only the authentic sources of information, let's say an election official, is the one that's actually behind that account, and it helps prevent account takeovers by malicious actors. Google offers a similar program. As we heard from Cliff in the presentation just before, things like storing files or having access to email are ways that malicious actors can get to the most sensitive information and puts that information at risk because of either data compromise or pretending to be the people behind that account. That's why, regardless of where you are, whether you're a journalist, an executive, or even an activist, you should consider taking advantage of this higher level of protection that mandates the use of two-factor authentication and helps put some of the best people behind security at Google on your side. Microsoft has a similar program called Defending Digital Democracy. Now, for those campaigns or other organizations that use Microsoft Office or 365, this is the program that you'll want to investigate. It offers some of the best protection that Microsoft has to offer at no cost. You might be thinking to yourself, TikTok, that's not really a place where people talk about elections. Well, it's going to be. If we know anything, new social media platforms gain momentum sometimes, and they become places for all kinds of conversations. So I urge anyone who is involved in elections, at least take a look at TikTok, see what the conversations are that are going on. Make sure that you yourself aren't being impersonated while on that platform, because people are increasingly going to other social media platforms to get their news. So you might as well be there to find out what's going on. And again, to make sure that someone isn't impersonating you and giving out false information. Here's where I'm going to put up a lot of resources and tools for you. I'm going to highlight just a couple from these, but again, they're going to be available to you after the presentation. One resource that I really appreciate is the Hamilton 2.0 dashboard. It's especially pertinent for those journalists who are trying to find the narratives behind some of these authoritarian regimes like China or Russia and what they're saying on different platforms to help manipulate some of the conversation that's going on in the US and other democracies around the world. For news-related resources, I like to go to FactCheckorg. Sometimes I'll hear a story that seems too good to be true or is counter to what I've heard coming from other sources. And so I want to double check to make sure that I'm understanding the story correctly. So FactCheckorg will have some of those popular news stories of the day, and they'll do a fact check, and they'll actually go through and verify sources and stories to debunk or to reinforce what the narrative is. And so I find that it's a pretty quick way for me to find out if those big stories that seem like they're too good to be true actually are. As far as information about misinformation and disinformation, I like these posters that CISA has put together. It's more of a graphical way to help explain what is disinformation and misinformation, and what role do individuals have in the effectiveness of disinformation campaigns. Now, I tend to be more of a visual learner, and that's why I like these graphics. They help me go step by step to understand not only what the risk is or what I should do, but it shows me exactly what options I have in being able to help prevent some of the effectiveness of disinformation campaigns. Now, this is a list of some of the federal policies that are coming soon. As we heard from Kim earlier, the US federal government has a very strong interest in making sure that elections across the country aren't compromised. And so there's going to be increased scrutiny in terms of supply chain security, in terms of detecting vulnerabilities. And one thing I want you to consider is, what does it actually mean to get help from someone from the outside? We've heard about adversaries coming from the outside to try to actually damage our election infrastructure. But here is a statement from the Department of Justice talking about the fact that there are actually good researchers that are out there that will help uncover vulnerabilities and keep an eye out for them. It may be worth being open to getting some of those messages from researchers to better understand what the vulnerabilities are so that they can be patched later on down the road. And with that, I'm going to close us out and say, all of these resources are available here at the USC website. And I want to thank Adam and the rest of the team for including me on this journey to help protect democracy. And really, Adam, I do appreciate that line. Our candidate is democracy. So thank you very much.